The Division 2 was released on March 15th of this year, and nearly 3 months later, I wanted to provide you with an update on the state of the game. Now, I'm a huge fan of the series, but I will remain completely neutral, as I always do, to ensure this video is a fair representation of how the game currently is. Now, the point of this video is to provide a constructive feedback on the game right now. I'd appreciate your own feedback and feelings in the comments down below, and with that said, let's start. When The Division 2 launched, it was applauded for being everything The Division should have been, and reviews all around appeared to be mainly positive. To be honest, that's exactly how I felt after the first couple of weeks of playing the game. The time to kill had been lowered, and the time to be killed increased, meaning the game encouraged you to use cover. Something everyone wanted from The Division, myself included. The open world had been filled with things to do, and there appeared to be an endless amount of PvE content. This list of reasons why I loved and still love The Division 2 is endless, but once the honeymoon phase had ended and the dust had settled, there are and were some glaring problems. Sound bugs, movement bugs, a medkit exploit granting the user nigh-on invulnerability, invisible weapons, invisible bullets and bullets not registering, an armor exploit granting the user invincibility, recalibration bugs, enemy AI that moved at the speed of light, and that's just to name a few. These problems are made worse because they're almost identical to the same issues The Division suffered with at launch, and after many updates later, these problems still persist today. Now, I think that's the most worrying issue for the current state of the game for me. The developers are clearly working very hard to fix all of the issues, but whether it's a snowdrop engine issue or a lack of testing or whatever it might be, every update fixes one problem and creates two more. If The Division 2 was the first game of the series like The Division was, I think I and most of the community would be a lot more forgiving with these issues, but because they replicate everything we've experienced before, I'm expecting more of the same into the future. Now, years and years of bugs, glitches, broken gear, broken weapons, and, you get the picture. I do hope I'm wrong. Now, let's move on to some of the biggest issues plaguing the game right now. The Division 2 is a looter shooter, just like its predecessor. Gear drops in abundance within the open world and in every activity you do. The gear drops at different rarities and higher levels as you progress through the game. You farm PvE or PvP to get better gear and weapons, making your character stronger, to complete harder and harder activities, to get better gear, and the cycle continues. It's a well-known formula that works perfectly fine in games like Destiny, for example. RNG and loot within The Division 2 has quickly become the talking point within the community. Now, I recently covered a Reddit post where someone worked out the chance of getting a specific piece of gear with the right talents and attributes rolled. It was approximately 0.000046%. There is basically a 0% chance of getting the gear you want, and that's only going to get worse as the game progresses and more gear is added to the game and to the loot pool. The problem is made worse by a couple of things. Firstly, 500 gear score pieces rarely drop in the open world. In fact, they rarely drop when you're completing activities, meaning the chance of you getting the 500 gear score item you want is significantly lower than zero. I know, that's not possible, and that's the point. Secondly, the recalibration station has restrictions that only allow you to trade one attribute. Almost every piece of gear can roll up to 4 attributes, aside from gloves, knee pads, and masks, I believe. Meaning the RNG required for the other attributes is again virtually zero. On top of that, if you want to craft a piece of gear, that's absolutely fine. But you can't then roll any of the talents on that crafted piece of gear. There are many reasons why loot and RNG are horrible, quite frankly, right now. The differences between gear score items of 450 and, say, 500 are so negligible, it's laughable. With the very low percentage of any gear actually having high main attributes in the first place, it's perfectly normal to find 450 gear or 490 gear that is better than the 500 gear score items. Now, there is an update coming to the recalibration station with Title Update 4 next week, which should alleviate one issue. It will be possible to trade the full value of an attribute onto another piece of gear without it being capped. Of course, in the game currently, That's not the case, and those attributes are currently capped, meaning most of the time when you recalibrate, say for example, armor percentage from one piece of gear to another, due to the stuff that's going on in the background, it will be capped, so you don't actually get the full amount. That's going to change next week though. Now this is very good change, but like with every update, the developers are simply refusing to acknowledge the 5 other issues that come with it. The grind for a chance at a better chess piece or a better MP5 SMG, for example, are what keeps players playing. Now, as it stands, there is simply no chance that you are going to get the gear you want to drop in the world. Whether that be from control points, heroic missions, PvP, it doesn't matter. And to make matters worse, there is nothing like the optimization station from the Division, which allowed you to take a piece of gear and push the attributes to their max with currency earned in game. There is nothing like that in the game currently. And that's a completely separate issue, but it's still an issue. So, loot is pretty broken right now. The Division 2 introduced gear mods just like its predecessor, but this time it offered a wide range of different attributes and power that could be equipped to your gear. The execution of these mods, however, have fallen really short. As of right now, there are 6 different types of mods. You have both system and protocol mods, each containing offensive, defensive and utility attributes. I say right now because there is a change coming with Title Update 4 next week when the utility and protocol requirements were removed, essentially halving the RNG on mods, which is a good thing of course. Now just like gear and weapons, mods also have a rarity and power level. Blue, purple and yellow high-end mods in that order. If I asked 100 people which one of these mods would add the most value to your high-end build, 100 people would say yellow, because these are of course high-end mods. They are the rarest and they go up to the highest power level. Wrong. For months now, people have been creating alt characters to farm blue mods, or generic mods as they're called in the game, because these mods are limited in what they can roll, meaning what they do roll is always a high attribute and uses up the whole pie. Now let me explain this. So you've got a pie and a whole pie equals 100%. With blue mods you can only roll one attribute, and whatever that will be will use 100% of that pie, or maximum attribute percentage. You might get a blue mod with 6% assault rifle damage, or a reload speed mod with 6.5% reload speed, for example. High-end mods can roll up to 3 attributes, but the pie is only slightly bigger. You might get LMG damage, armor percentage and reload speed, for example, on that high-end mod. Now, because the pie is going to be split into 3, because we got 3 attributes here, this means that even if you have, say, 9% to play with in that pie, instead of the 6% from the blue mods, this has to be split into 3, resulting in high-end mods rarely providing more meaningful increases in power over the generic blue mods. Would you rather have a mod with 6% assault rifle damage, or a high-end mod with 1.5% assault rifle damage, 2.5% reload speed and 2% armor? I know what I'd pick. Not allowing generic mods to be put onto high-end gear fixes part of a problem, but it does not address the wider issue. High-end mods are simply, they're just not worth the bother. They add such incremental boosts to your character that is barely visible in-game, and because you can roll 3 attributes in a much wider pool than generic mods, for example, RNG again plays a huge factor. In short, mods in their current state at endgame are irrelevant completely. No one is farming mods, but they could be if there was a good reason to farm them. My knowledge on skills within the game is limited. I'm not a skill player, and nor do I have a skill build per se. With that in mind though, I can offer a little bit here. I do know the community are not happy with them as is. I do know that skills feel a lot more clunky to deploy, frequently not deploying at all. Most skills are absolutely useless within the game and require manual targeting, which slows everything down. And because of this, skills are rarely used in the heat of battle, whether that be PvP or PvE, are instead used before battle. Some changes have been made to try and improve the effectiveness of most skills within the game, but still to this day, the Defender Drone and the Reinforcer Cam Launcher are the go-to meta skills, with the Reviver Hive being very useful in PvE when it actually decides to work. What makes it worse is the skill mods. I see what the developers were trying to do with skills and their mods, but again, it's been poorly executed, and even after recent balancing patches, skill builds are still not viable in most activities. The skill mod requirements are still so high, which is fine if you are rewarded with skills that actually put in work. No one's going to complain about investing 2,500 to skill that turns your flame turret into a walking, talking, automatic flamethrower that incinerates everything in its path. You are rewarded for the amount you put into it, and that's what people want. The problem is, you'd be lucky to get a flame turret with any sort of damage output in the current meta. Skills, they just need a serious rework. PvP. Well, PvP at launch was pretty shoddy, and 3 months later, it's still pretty shoddy. The Division 2 attempted to make PvP more tactical, in my opinion, what with the stand around medkit and manual skills, but again, like most things, they have executed it horribly. Now, I think the decision alone to make this more of a tactical PvP experience was a disaster, or spelled disaster for the game day one. I've always been a huge PvP player. I was a massive PvP player in the Division 1, but for me, it's the only activity I can play where I'm always going to get a different experience. It's not like PvE for me. PvE, I can go in and I can play the same mission over and over again, and some people will have fun trying to get a record. That's not what I enjoy. The reason I love PvP so much is because you never quite know what you're going to get. And it saddens me to say this, but I simply refuse to play PvP in the Division 2 in its current state. And instead, I actually get my fix from Destiny 2. Now, there is so much I could say about PvP in this game, but this video is getting pretty long. The developers have confirmed they will be focusing on PvP soon, but as of 3 months since launch, nothing's changed, except it's probably worse now following the armor and medkit exploits. Stay clear of PvP. It is a ghost town and no one is playing it because there is nothing there. I really hope the devs look into this and get this fixed as soon as possible. So by now you're probably bored of me bashing the game, but that's not my intention with this video. The point of this video is to be constructive, so I want to briefly touch upon some of the good things to take away from the first 3 months. The developers are clearly working very, very hard to fix all of the issues. I have no doubt about that. It feels like every week a new patch or an update or a maintenance goes into the game with fixes being deployed at a rapid pace, much faster than anything we experienced from the Division, and this gives me hope that one day they'll get it right. The raid was a great piece of content. Yes, I still think matchmaking should have been an option, and I also think having just one exotic tied to this was a bit sort of lackluster, but the raid itself was good, and I enjoyed playing it. Every week the developers come out for state of the game, even when they have very little to actually say, and the comments are always filled with toxic crap, to be honest. They still come out and they talk to us, the community, and they do their best. Lastly, it has only been 3 months. The game is very early into its life cycle. A lot of the issues right now could and will most certainly be fixed in time. Bugs, exploits, and general server issues are likely never going to be completely gone, but I can live with the old sort of bug or two if they can fix all of the other problems. Loot, RNG, skills, mods, PvP. These for me are the most pressing issues with the game and why I wanted to highlight them in this video. 3 months on and the dust is settled. The world is beautiful, but I'm shooting an NPC with an invisible gun who is as fast as the Flash, who's got behind me and takes me down. My reviver hive comes out but fails to revive me. My teammate helps me up, and after taking down Flash, a yellow light reveals a new piece of gear, 5 levels below my current gear level. I look at the time wasted, and I'm done. Thank you if you made it to the end of this video. I don't hate this game, and actually quite the opposite. It's my love for this game that made me make this video. I'm not expecting results overnight, but I really think the devs need to acknowledge all of the issues in this video and on the community forums, because there is so much more here that I could have talked about, but I just basically wanted to do a constructive recap of the current state of the game, and this for me are the main issues. Ignoring them will not make them go away, and whilst I don't think these are being ignored, we have no way of actually knowing because the devs only appear to address one thing at a time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It actually felt pretty good getting this off my chest. Until the next one, agents, epic out.